following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, in the northern part of California. I'm lucky. I get to reune with four of the mainstays from the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, all of them in one place. Hal Blumkin, how are you, sir?
Doing okay.
Okay, and George Case III?
Yeah, I'm here. Good to be back with everybody.
It's good to have you. David Hubler?
Hi, I'm back too. It's good to speak to everybody.
Your voice sounds great. And the host of the show for the evening, because he's back writing a column. Tell us about your venture, Hal Bock.
Well, yeah, I'm back too, and I'm delighted to be with you guys. I missed our Tuesday night get-togethers. I've also resumed writing my column Box Score for a local website called New York Sports Day. And this week I wrote about my most recent column was about the National Football League and the Players Association. And the rookies are coming to camp. I guess they started coming to camp today. The report date is next week, but there was a little dispute. And what would it be if not we didn't have a dispute between management and the players? The players wanted that, because of the pandemic that we're living through, to have testing every day for the virus, and the league said, oh no, you can test every other day. And the players wanted no exhibition games, which makes a lot of sense to me. And the league said, well, let's do 2 exhibition games. So they were at loggerheads about that, and that was what I wrote about. And I guess because I wrote about it, they came to a settlement in the last day or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they agreed that for the first 2 weeks they would be tested every day, and that if they were below 5% positive testing, they would test every other day. And they are going to have, I think they're going to have no exhibition games, which is a good thing. And I like to think that my column triggered the settlement, although probably not. Anyway,
well, you should get credit for it, Hal. That's good.
I should get credit. You're right. I should get credit for it.
Well, you're getting credit for it right now. I think that's terrific.
I'll tell you what, I'm impressed. I think it's wonderful. That's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I have a philosophical question for you guys regarding this. Would you think, if you were the owners, your most valuable assets being your players, other than your TV contract, but wouldn't you want to make sure that the players were in good health, even if you had to test them every day? Why would you negotiate that and piss them off just for pissing them off sake? How much could it cost at this point to test the players every day? Why would that be an issue?
I think it's a question of who's in charge here, who owns the league, who owns the players, who's the boss. I think that's as simple as a simple answer to your question.
But I think that's cutting your nose off for the owners. I think that's cutting your nose off to spite your face.
I agree. Oh, I agree. But you'll never convince them, you know.
There's another aspect to it, a sort of PR aspect. When you see hundreds of cars lined up for people to get tested, and the tests are running low, and the results don't come back within a week, and then you've got these big football players getting tested every day. There's a certain, sociological disconnect here between the haves and the have-nots.
You're absolutely right, David.
Good point.
You're absolutely
Very
right.
good point. Hey, congratulations on two things. Being back in the flow of things. You're going to write your column on a regular basis, and that's good. And making a difference in labor negotiations and in the world. How many years you've been doing that, Hal?
It's more time than I care to remember, I'll tell you. But, I'd like to discuss really, the fact that we have four major sports in America. We have baseball, we have football, we have basketball, and we have hockey. Baseball is a non-contact sport, essentially. The other three are collision sports. Football, obviously, is a collision sport. There is body contact all the time in hockey and basketball. And we are at a time in the world and in America, we're going through this horrible virus and this pandemic, and it's so contagious. And I wonder how safe it is to resume these games with these
not
athletes.
Safe. And ask Freddie Freeman of the Atlanta Braves. What he went through was a horrible dose of the virus. And saw an interview with him. He suffered quite a bit, and he was sicker than he had been in his life. And my question is, any world-class athlete that goes through this virus is not going to be the same on some level after that. It's going to affect the scouting report, the evaluation, the long-term career. It is not just live or die. It's the ramifications of dealing with the ongoing side effects of the disease or what it affects. And,
well, it leaves scars. From what I understand, when you catch this virus, no matter how mild your case is, you have after effects. Now, what will they be for a guy like Freddie Freeman who had 104 degrees fever? I don't know. But there certainly seems to be a universal after effect of having suffered through the virus. So my question is, there's going to be contact between these athletes. That's the essence of their games. I mean, you can't have hockey without body checking. You can't have basketball without defense.
Right.
And you can't have football. I mean, football is nothing but collisions. How are they going to avoid spreading the virus? I don't know.
Yeah, I think the worst case is in the NBA, simply because the other three sports, they wear a certain amount of protection. Baseball less than hockey and football, but certainly more than guys dressed in T-shirts and shorts going at it on a basketball court. And when you see these guys, they're sweating like bullets. They're sweating bullets out there. And I can't understand how basketball players won't be really affected by this. It'll only take one. I'm concerned that I think the NBA is going to be in for a rough season, however long it lasts.
Very good point, David. On that note, I've seen a number of articles and heard enough on sports talk radio that the reason that baseball even agreed to this rump of a season was because the owners stood to lose a fortune if there were no postseason games from TV, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, here's a question. You hear about, among the things you can do to defend yourself against the virus is something called social distancing. Stay 6 feet away from the other guy, right? Well, you can do that in baseball except for one position. The catcher and the batter can't be 6 feet apart. And the catcher and the plate umpire cannot be 6 feet apart. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, but what do you do about holding a runner on first base? You can't be 6 feet apart.
Same thing.
Yeah.
So the nature of the games is such that it really doesn't lend itself to preventing the virus from running wild. I hate to say that, and it scares me, but I won't be surprised if guys come down with the virus in all sports.
You know what, Hal? I agree with everything you're saying, and I've been thinking about that too. Because as far as I'm concerned, all the sports they're making an effort because the amount of money involved. But I'll be very surprised if there's not a huge outbreak of this virus amongst the players because of just what you're talking about. I mean, there's got to be physical contact in every one of those sports. Mm-hmm. And, they're talking about, the schools and what you're talking about, social distancing and opening up the schools and doing all that kind of stuff. Well, they do all the testing, and like David said, I mean, the players are getting tested every day, and yet there's thousands and millions of people waiting in line for 6 and 8 hours for a test. But what happens if they come back positive? Then they start quarantining. They do all these contact testing. So if a player, in theory, a player or more is positive, then he's got to quarantine, and they've also got to quarantine everybody he's in contact with, which is all of his teammates.
And how about when a player goes from city to city? Like you go to New York from California now, you have to be quarantined.
Right,
so,
that's right.
Why wouldn't that apply to ball players? They spread the disease equally. The virus doesn't know.
Ralph, you're absolutely right. And also, to prove that point, the Toronto Blue Jays do not have a home field.
Right, exactly. I was going to bring that up.
Canada will not let American players into the country, so they're going to have to wind up playing in Buffalo or some place like that. And that's another issue. Exactly what you're talking about. Teams travel. That's exactly what they do. And
right.
and my whole thinking about being involved in sports all my life is that I know how teammates, they talk, they carry on in the clubhouses, they do. This is what they do. And now all of a sudden they're going to be in a clubhouse after a ball game having a beer or whatever they're doing, and they won't be able to do it.
And don't forget the socializing that goes on at ball players are not at 23 years old, 25 years old.
Sure.
You're making $1 million a year. You're going to have some attention from the opposite sex.
Yeah,
or from the same sex.
Or the same sex. Yeah.
I think there's been some of that going on over the years, Ralph. You're absolutely right.
None of my business. Not that there's anything wrong with that, as I said on Seinfeld.
This is going to be a season like no other in all our sports.
Yeah. I want to bring up something while we're talking about this. And David, you jump in there because Fauci's going to be throwing out the first ball in Washington, I think, on Thursday. But I'm not into baseball at all right now. I just cannot imagine playing ball in empty stadiums, and now with piped-in fan noise and cardboard cutouts that the teams are selling of people in the stands. I mean, I just can't get over that. And now they're coming up with some of these crazy rules, which we had talked about before. They're putting a runner on second base, in an extra inning, and now they're going to have DH in both leagues and all that stuff. I mean, to me, the game is just out of control. It's just going crazy. And now, I think in pro football, they're going to try to make an effort. Pro basketball, they're trying to do it down there at Disney World or whatever it is, hockey. But if you look at college football,
facility.
I don't even think there's going to be a season in college football, to be honest with you. I don't think the schools are even going to be open. And if they do, I just was reading, they're going to allow, like in New Jersey, 500 fans will be allowed into a stadium that seats 80,000 people.
Well, with baseball, it's a cardboard
got a lot of leg room.
Right.
I watched the highlights of the Yankee Met game the other day on the ESPN website, And there was 4 or 5 home runs hit by the Yankees. A couple of them, especially the one by Stanton, were titanic. And they show them hitting, and there's absolutely nobody there.
Right.
None. And it's just really, really. I can't. Normally, I would have been excited that it was going to resume, but I just can't wrap my head around all of this.
Well, Alan, that's why I'm bringing it up, because as much as I've been around the game all my life, I just can't get interested. I mean, I turn it on. I watched a little bit of that Mets-Yankees game for about an inning, and one of the players, I think, he was complaining because they had to adjust the noise level or some damn thing with the crowd noise, in through the speakers. And I mean, it's ridiculous. To me, it's a joke. You're trying to make something. You're trying to make something out of it that it's not. And baseball and any sport, it's a game. You have fans. You have people in the stadiums. You have excitements. I mean, to me, I would rather have no games than to have this sham that they're putting on, and they're calling it, and what are they going to do in football? I mean, if they have a big collision in the field, they're all laying down there and doing all that kind of stuff. You don't think that that's a possibility of spreading the damn thing? I agree with you, Hal, 100%.
Sure.
The president of the Football Players Union is a center for the Cleveland Browns, a center. So he crouches over the ball, and he's got guys on both sides of him. He's got a guy in front of him, and they're all snorting, and they're all breathing hard from the previous play. And I mean, can you imagine? If I were a virus, that's where I'd want to be.
No question about it. Absolutely.
Hey, if you're a union, your first job is to protect the players' health. Not their wealth, but their health first. And I don't see where every union and every college doesn't just shut it all down for the year. We haven't even gotten to the runner on second in extra innings, and we're all 4 of us disgusted. So
last night, the Yankees and the Phillies played at Yankee Stadium, and the score was 2-1 in the 9th inning. And the Yankees have a rookie named Mike Ford, and he hit a home run. Apparently, I didn't see it, but they say it was a long, like 600 feet. I don't believe that, but okay, it was a long home run.
Yeah, right.
That home run was it tied the game at 2-2 after 9 innings. Well, now we're supposed to have a guy on second base. Both teams said, you know what, we'll take the tie and go home. Which gives you a little idea about what these managers and what these players think about this rule.
Right.
Marty Rose suggested this on one of the podcasts. Why don't they have, if it's tied after 9 innings, just a tie, like in hockey? You build that right into the system.
Okay with me.
And remember how we talked about prospective rule changes in the independent leagues and how they were experimenting with putting a runner on second, and this was way back, maybe a year ago.
Yeah, it was about a year ago. Right, Ralph. It was.
And all 4 of us were so repulsed by that. Put a runner on second in extra innings. It changes the rule books. Who gets to run? The whole thing is bastardizing the game. Do we really want to see that kind of crap for a 60-game season with all kinds of stuff going on? Or would it be better as baseball fans to just close it down, and not put it in the record book, because it's got to go as a big asterisk in the record book.
It's a tough call. It's a tough call to make.
Well, what I was thinking, guys, maybe you know more than I do about it, but I was thinking that maybe they were using this 60-game experiment, or whatever the hell they're calling it, to put that rule in just for this season. Now, is that the way it is, or is this actually a rule that's been adopted? If it has been, I haven't read anything about it.
No, I haven't seen anything either.
I think it's just for this season, but I wouldn't trust them if it worked in any way, or if people weren't repulsed by it in any way, that they adopted it. and that would just sicken me.
You know what they're doing? They're using the designated hitter in the National League for this 60-game season, and then for 2021, they're going back to the old rules where the National League pitchers batted. So, I mean, it makes no sense.
Are you sure about that, Hal? Because I think this is just a backdoor way to get that.
You know why that is? I'll tell you why that is. That's going to be a bargaining chip in the collective bargaining agreement.
At the end of next year.
Which comes up after 2021.
Yeah.
That's going to be part of the bargaining agreement.
Yeah,
so, I mean, they're taking our game, and they've put it in a ringer, and it's come out just...
They even had a woman coaching at third base in the San Diego Padres game.
Right.
I mean, now you talk about ruining the game, making it co-ed? Are you kidding me?
Well, the Yankees do have a hitting instructor.
And a woman announcer.
Well,
who's been there for years. I leave him in the radio booth. Don't put him.
You know, you guys haven't even mentioned another rule change. A relief pitcher has to face 3 batters. You're taking away the strategy of the game.
Absolutely.
Part of the strategy of the game is I have a pitcher who can get your batter out, but he can't get the next batter out. So I'm going to let him pitch to your batter, and then I'm going to come out and get him and bring another pitcher in. Now, I know that takes a lot of time, and I know it requires staying at the ballpark more than an hour and a half, but that's the nature of the game. That's called baseball. And if you didn't want to be at the ballpark, then don't come to the ballpark. Stay home and watch it on TV, and you can turn it off anytime you want. But if you come into the ballpark, at least agree to stay for the ball game. In Dodger Stadium in Chavez Ravine, the great tradition is to leave after 6 innings to beat the traffic.
Right.
Well, baseball isn't a 6-inning game. It's a 9-inning game. So if you wanted to come to a baseball game, commit to the 9 innings. But that's not done in Los Angeles.
One thing that's driving me crazy is how the heck do you score with the runner on second? Friends of mine suggested a walk, stolen base, all this. I said, yeah, but if you charge a pitcher with a walk to somebody who isn't pitched to, there has to be an equal thing between offense and defense. I don't see how the heck they're going to implement.
Why would they do this? I'm just as much a traditionalist as you guys are, but why would they do this? Give me some logical reason.
There is none. Ralph, by the way, our friend Mike Preminger explains the 6-inning departure at Chavez Ravine by everyone is because they're suffering from carbon monoxide withdrawal.
Good. I like that.
That's good.
Mike Preminger and the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network are very well tied. David Hubler and Mike do Bronx Roots, and we're going to have a reunion show with Bronx Roots coming up. Mike Preminger was a big-time comedian in his day. What was it, 7 Carson appearances? And David and I kibitz about the Bronx, about life.
More about life, yes.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
You have a standing ovation. You have a standing invitation.
The Zigzag Man comes from Queens. You don't come from the Bronx.
Oh, but my grandparents do. And
that doesn't count. That's a violation.
No, if you've ever been on Valentine Avenue and you heard Rose Nissa's voice, she would have told you in no uncertain terms, it counts. Believe me.
Yeah, we gave him an honorary citizenship.
Yeah, I was invited, but I moved out of the Bronx when I was 8.
Well, 8? Good early age. I would spend out of the first 5 years of my life, I probably spent a total of 3 years in my grandparents' care. My parents traveled, and they knew that they were leaving me in good hands. My grandfather was a Giant fan. He took me to the Polo Grounds before Willie Mays was called up in 1951 and after Willie Mays was called up. And I can remember sitting there, him talking about the reconfiguration of players. Hal Bock, you remember that when they called up Willie? What did
Absolutely.
they do?
Absolutely. April of 1951. I was in a bathtub in my apartment when he hit the home run off Warren Spahn. His first major league hit was a home run in the Polo Grounds off Warren Spahn. And
it took a while. He was struggling for a while.
Yes,
and
he went like 0 for 21, something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Mantle had the same. He struggled too at first, and he came up in 51 too.
Yeah, you guys know who was the other Hall of Famer that Spahn gave up the first home run to? Sandy Koufax.
Whoa!
Sandy Koufax's first of 2 home runs, 3 home runs.
Was hit off of
telling
Warren
me
Spahn.
that Koufax hit a home run with Spahn?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's pretty amazing.
Well, Hal, do you remember a doubleheader in 1962 when the Mets and the Braves, Hobie Landreth hit a home run off of Spahn to win the first game?
No, I don't. Not specifically. No.
Okay, but and then my brother and I had to go to Aunt Fagel's for Pesach.
Let me ask you a question. I have a question for you.
We had to leave a doubleheader to go to Aunt Fagel's for Pesach.
Outrageous!
I have a question. The Giants left New York in 1957. And there was no National League team in New York until the Mets in 1962. Did you embrace the Mets right away, or were you ambivalent about them?
I was very much. I couldn't get. First, I started rooting for the Braves, especially in '57 in that World Series, National League, American League type thing, and I was pissed at the Giants for leaving at first. But then I slowly adopted to the San Francisco Giants, and it wasn't until 61 that I really gave all my allegiance to the Mets, just in time to see the 62 Giants with all coaches and managers from my boyhood winning the National League pennant, and the Mets finishing last.
Do you know that for the 4 years that there was no Major League Baseball in New York, the highest the Yankees drew during those 4 years was about $1.75 million in 1961, when they had the Mantle Maris home run chase going on, and which should have brought out a lot more people than it did. This was the max. Because most of the people I know who were Dodger or Giant fans couldn't bring themselves to root for the Yankees.
No.
Well, I agree with that, but I tell you, I was so ambivalent about the Mets when they came along in '62. The Giants had broken my heart, and it took an awfully long time for me to embrace baseball again. And I felt about it in '62 and thereon for several years, very much the way I feel about the current baseball. Okay, you want to play? Go play. Don't expect me to dedicate myself to you guys because you're playing a foolish game, a game I don't recognize and a game I don't agree with. So maybe someday I'll go with a man on second base in the 10th inning.
No.
Maybe someday I'll go with the designated hitter. Maybe someday I'll go with three batters for a pitcher, and all of the other rule changes that they're coming up with. But I don't know. It's going to be hard for me.
Talking about the lost National League Baseball in New York for those 4 years. If you recall, and I forget, his name eludes me for the moment, but I think it was on WOR radio, they did a transcribed game of the Phillies.
Krushenko.
Right.
Was it Krushenko?
No, Krushenko. Yeah. Les Kiter. Yep.
Les Kiter, not Krushenko.
Yeah. No, not Krushenko. Krushenko at that time was doing bowling, if I recall.
True.
Yeah, it was true. But no, I'm not kidding. I remember him doing bowling on the weekends. But yeah, he did it just the same way that Reagan did it in the 30s with the Cubs by reading off a teletype ticker.
That's right.
With banging a.
Yeah, then they do the sound effects, right?
Yeah.
But
by the way,
kid who just lost the Giants, that was pretty welcome.
Stan.
I want to go on record as saying that I didn't mean it when I was making fun of that woman coach on first base. I'm just kidding. I'm all for women's rights, so I don't want any.
You've got politically correctness down pat after all these years.
But I was surprised to see that. I wonder if they'll continue that.
I'm surprised to hear an apology from a Roger Stone friend.
Right, that's right.
Okay.
That one still gets me. I wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats on that one, Dave. I haven't told that to anybody yet, but
well, we all heard it, so we can vouch for what he said. So
you were there too, George.
That's right, I heard him.
All right.
Me too.
Well, then you must be proud that he's out of prison. He's done his time. He knows what's his and what's that song by Johnny Cash. But I don't think he even went to prison, as a matter of fact.
No, he did not.
No.
He was 2 days before he was due to report.
Yeah. I don't even want to talk about that tonight.
No, neither do I.
With the second base, the guy on second base and extra innings, and that combined, I'm not going to sleep well.
It's a bad night.
A bad night.
Now, what do they call this guy at second base? Is he a designated runner, or what the hell is he?
Nobody knows.
I don't know. And how does that go? Who scores? How does that go in batting averages? Does it go against the pitcher? Is it an earned run?
An unearned run. I read someplace that it'll be scored as an unearned run.
Okay.
Scores.
It should be unearned. I mean,
not that I care one way or the other, frankly.
He didn't do anything except he walked out on the field and got at second base. He didn't do a damn thing.
No.
But that'll look great in the record. That'll look great in the record books 30 years from now.
I would love to know.
Is he supposed to be a regular position? I mean, or do you guys know? I don't know. I mean, can the guy come in to be the designated runner?
Yeah, sure.
And then he doesn't have to worry about, I mean, that's it. So
but what happens?
Does he have to be a substitute? I guess he has to be a substitute.
Yeah, but what
he's got to be on the roster, but he's a substitute. I mean, he's not a player. So
he's essentially the 11th man.
Right.
Oh,
what
great.
happens if he doesn't score in that half inning? Do they continue on, or do they continue putting a man on second base?
Yes. Until somebody scores.
Each half inning.
They bring it back the next inning.
What I'd like to see is 23 innings, and does it have to be once you're in as the runner one time? Do you get to come back in the game as a runner?
Sure, you weren't taken out of the game.
That was my question. I think it's such a ridiculous rule. I wonder if they've even thought about it. I mean, I
wonder the same thing. I wonder if they figured it out.
Right.
Yeah.
The way they operate, they put things together at the last minute, and I don't know if they figured that part of it out. That's a very good question.
Well, it seems to me that unless in the next inning another runner subs for him, he's still in the game.
Right.
The original runner, because he didn't come out of the game.
Where are you going to put him, though?
He goes into the dugout. He sits in the dugout for a half inning.
Until the next half inning.
Yeah, exactly. That seems to be the way it's set up.
So he remains the runner. He remains the designated
runner. Right.
I guess.
With a little asterisk to distinguish him from all the other designated runners that are put into the game to substitute for the slower runners when there's a scoring opportunity. It's insane. It's true.
I hope you guys enjoy this season because I know I'm not going to be watching.
You'll watch. You'll watch.
The truth, I hate all these things. I just can't stand them. I think it's ridiculous. I would much rather, as we've said earlier, I'd much rather be no baseball than this kind of hybrid garbage.
I agree with that. I agree with that. I think the smarter thing to do would have been to just shut it down.
Yeah.
I think the smarter thing to do would be to shut down all the sports.
Yeah,
I agree
with
that.
Hal.
All of this problem of spreading the virus.
The benefit of society. It isn't all about sports. I'm learning that for the first time in my life, basically. This has been a withdrawal. I don't have many other interests. I color. An etch-a-sketch every now and again.
But I mean, the season's really half over.
People need something to bet on, and if they shut down the 4 sports, the only thing they can bet on is horses.
And the death toll, the over/under on the death toll.
God.
That sounds very cheery. All right, guys, this is a nice getting back with you guys. Let's do it once a month. How about that?
Okay, Ralph, you let us know what that would be.
But we're not going to take a cut in salary from going once a week to once a month.
You're going to actually salary doubles. Just see the union. See your union rep on your way out. You put the thing up your nose.
From zero is still zero, right?
So when is our next gathering?
4 weeks from today. How about that?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
Let's see.
Alan, we didn't hear much from you tonight. Anything you want to say about anything? It doesn't have to be sports. I just like hearing your voice, Mr. Genius.
The 18th, August 18th.
Alan Blumkin.
Yes.
Ralph Allen. Anything you'd like to end with? We didn't hear your voice much.
Oh, in agreement with David that the other 3 are contact sports, but he made the point that the basketball players wear virtually no protection. I don't know how this bubble nonsense is going to work. But
how about baseball players in the dugout, in the clubhouse, in the elevator? That's ridiculous. You're not going to stop contact. So I think we're all in agreement in a perfect world they just shut it down. Shut it all down, and let's put our energy into survival and stay healthy, guys, for 4 weeks. How about that?
Yeah, well, my opinion, we've shut about everything else down. We've shut the schools down, we've shut the businesses down, we've shut everything down, travel down. So you shut pro sports down for this year. That's all. And go back to normal next year. Hopefully, it'll be back to normal. But this certainly is not normal. So
no.
There's too much money involved.
Yep.
Wear your mask. Stay healthy.
We're going to do this again August 18th, all right?
August 18th.
August 18th. I got it down.
All right. Everybody stay healthy.
Okay. Take
Love
care.
you guys.
Yep.
Be well.
Bye.
All right.
Bye now.
Good night, everybody.
Okay. I'm done if you needed it, Al. Hang the phone up, that's all. I'm just going to hang the phone up. I was just going to hang the phone up.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices, and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.